Okay, guys, before I start, I'm going to ask you to do, the usual, if you will, and that is basically subscribe to the channel, ring the bell for notifications, also like the video and share the video, and also click on the links in the description to find my content elsewhere. You can find my content in in some of your favorite various podcast affiliates like iTunes, iHeartRadio, Radio Public, Audible, Amazon Music, Pandora, Spotify, to an extent SiriusXM. Anywhere there is a podcast to be found, you will find mine there as well. You can also find me at rumble.com, odyssey.com, VENMO.com, and support me over at Patreon, at Venmo, and Cash App would be greatly appreciated during this time of change and looking for a new job to work at. And also, guys, the live chat is open, so super chats are welcome depending on what you can afford to do during the premiere. Also, excuse me. Also, both of my stores are open. My new fourth wall store. I got one piece of merchandise there, but there will be more coming in the future. And the OG Teespring store as well. The link to the fourth wall is at the top. Link to the Teespring is at the bottom. And also, guys, like I said, get the likes up and everything. It helps me out. It helps me get noticed more. Within this landscape known as YouTube. Uh, But anyway, to get on to the topic, I'm sure a lot of you, if you did, saw AEW Wrestle Dream tonight. And one of the matches that was promoted on a 24-hour notice was Mercedes Mone, FKA Sasha Banks, issuing an open challenge to any champion in the world to, I thought, along with anybody else, was actually just going to be a TBS championship defense for her, but it turned out to be title for title. And the person that answered her challenge was the interim, keyword interim, ROH Ring of Honor Women's Television Champion, Mina Shirakawa. And as predicted, I'm sure nobody needs to see the match, if you will, to pretty much, know what the outcome was going to be. But if not, the pictures here say it all. Mercedes Moné ended up beating Mina Shirakawa to not only keep and retain her TBS title, but to also win the interim ROH Women's TV Championship. Now, with that said, and everything, basically, the moment this happened, and everything, a lot of people were very mixed about it. And unlike before, even with the diehards and the sickos and all that, the Monet fans and all that, even some of them, uh, pretty much, I guess, finally decided to just, you know, exhale a little bit, like in a very sigh of, not a sigh of relief, but a sigh of, really, again? Because once again, Mercedes ends up winning another championship, and this, along with the other championships he has, including the TBS title, helped her break the record that Ultimo Dragon had, and thus she ended up becoming 11 belts Monet. In fact, she even nicknames herself now, or they had her announce or list her as Mercedes Ultimo Monet. And now it looks like she's going to be going into a program at Full Gear in November next month to face Chris Statlander for the AEW Women's World Championship, and pretty much everybody can see the writing on the wall already. Now, some might say, well, this might be the exception and everything. Chris will finally beat her because they're already playing it up that she's never, been able to beat Mercedes and everything. Mercedes has had her number and all that, and basically they're playing it up to the point that, if this match happens, which it will, there's not a good it's not going to be a good night for Chris because of that history she has with Mercedes. And honestly, you can't blame anybody for believing that stat, if you will, that history that got talked about on even Wrestle Dream tonight. And you can find a lot of clips on social media, mostly on X.com, and you'll see exactly what I'm talking about. But you can't blame anybody for feeling this way because it's like, really, because it's like really, the question gets asked is like, how many belts does this woman need? Like, what is the point? Why does she want to win all these championships? And some people have said that maybe she doesn't win, and some people have tried to come to her defense, I should say, and have said that she doesn't want to win these championships. It's the companies that give it to her, it's the promotions that give them to her, and maybe there's truth to that. But if that's true, and she has the reputation, she has the star power profile, if you will, that she has, then she should be able to say no. I don't want to win this championship. Give it to somebody else, or let me beat the person, but maybe by disqualification or count out. But but obviously that's not happening, and she's parading around with the championships like she's proud, like she's happy she got these championships. And again, this puts a lot more fire, a lot more gasoline onto the fire, if you will, of her having, a lot of say in winning these championships, basically having creative control. No matter, like no matter where she's at, whether she's in AEW/ROH, or she's in, New Japan, CMLL, Rev Pro, any of the other international promotions she's won championships in. This basically adds more gasoline to the fire, to that fire of she does have that creative control. She does have that final say. And as JD from NY206 once put it, and I'm not sure if he'll bring it up, again during his review that's currently going on live right now with Chi-Town Mark, Jesse, if you will, which is a late one because right now, what time is it? What's the time right now? Hold on, let me check. It is 10:18, so it's about 1:18, where he is. It's 12:18 where Jesse is. But I don't know if he'll bring it up again. But he once said in a collab review with Jesse that based on his own experience, he knows what Mercedes is about. He knows the power that she has, that she wields, and everything, no matter where she goes. The final say, the creative say. So I don't know if he'll bring something up tonight because he did comment, on social media, on Twitter, that he basically finds it a joke that they basically buried one of their championships for the Ring of Honor brand, by giving it to Mercedes, or basically having Mercedes beat the champion at that time. Now, some people might say, well, she's only holding the interim version of the women's TV title. The real women's TV champion, I think, what is it, Red Velvet? I think she has, she's coming, she has to make her return, and when she does, she'll probably get it back. She'll probably lay claim to that, and that'll be one less title for Mercedes. We'll have to see. We'll have to see. But the way this company goes, the way Tony, in the eyes of a lot of folks, bends to Mercedes whims. Who's to say that if that's going to happen at all? Because if, let's say, I think it was Red Velvet, right, that was the champion before she went on the injured list. Who's to say when she comes back and she faces Mercedes to determine who the undisputed women's TV champion is, Mercedes doesn't say, hey, I want to go over her, I'm going to be the true champion. Because in the eyes of a lot of folks, that's what's going to happen, eventually. Just like they feel Full Gear is when Mercedes is going to go from 11 belts Mone to 12 belts Mone. But again, the obvious question is, what is this all about? Why didn't she just say no? It's like she was willing, I guess, if she didn't get pinned, to drop the New Japan Strong Women's title. And again, I guess the only reason she did that is she basically, I guess, made sure she wasn't going to be the one that gets pinned and everything. That she was all right with that. Is that what it's going to take for her to lose these belts? Her being put into multi-person matches with the only stip that she doesn't get pinned. Is that what's going to happen? We don't know. We don't know. But it's it's going to be interesting to see what they do going into Full Gear, because you you can't argue against people's, you know, you can't argue against their, I guess you could say, negativity towards the match, because it's like, she didn't. It's like Mercedes didn't win it at, at All In, against Tony Storm. Now she has 11 belts to her name, and now she's going into this match. Well, yeah, 11 belts to her name. Now she's going into this match, potentially going for a 12th. And she wants to go and basically, going into this match, she wants to be the one that beat the champion. In other words, if she beats Statlander, who beat Storm, or basically won the match where Storm was involved, and then beat Storm tonight, clean, you know, it's gonna, it's just gonna be very frustrating for fans to even want to give this company a shot or give this company, any time of day. I mean, yeah, they're going to give the women as teams another opportunity to win championship gold, and it looks like all signs are pointing towards Mina Shirakawa and Timeless Tony Storm becoming the inaugural Women's World Tag Team Champions, and the brackets are going to be revealed this Wednesday. But still, it's like, really, it's like, come on, this isn't to me. To me, I will say it. It's not fair. It's not fair to the women, in that company. It's not fair to them. It's not fair to any of the women that might consider coming in for an appearance, but then deciding, yeah, I don't want to be part of this because they could see the writing on the wall. You know, it's just, it's just one of those situations to where, you should be happy for this person that she's, being able to go out there and prove to the world that she's everything she says she is in ring. But you also can't feel you can't but you also can't help but feel sorry for a lot of the women in these promotions that fight for these championships only to, basically be told, if they're the champion, hey, Mercedes is coming in, you're defending against her, and oh, by the way, she's made sure she's the one going over whether you like it or not. And and I know people will say that, well, the reason they want Mercedes to go over is she's the bigger name. It'll bring more eyes to the brand and everything, to the promotion. And it's like, yeah, it'll bring eyes to the brand, to the promotion, but only when she probably feels like going back there and defending. You know, it's it's just a frustrating thing, and it's making people turn off AEW, especially during the women's matches. I mean, they got a great women's roster, they do, and they're going to have a great women's tag division. They got the teams for it and everything, but now you even have Mercedes going online and asking, hey, who wants to be my partner, to go after the tag titles? It's like, when is enough enough? What is, again, the question is, what is the point behind Mercedes doing this? What is her reasoning for, even if she does drop the title, let's say in a multi-woman match like she did for New Japan or New Japan Strong? What's the point overall for just winning these? What's her reasoning? And I gave my reasoning, when I talked about this before, and I think my reasoning is real simple. She's sending a message to WWE. She's sending a message to Paul Levesque. She's sending a message, to Nick Khan and all of them, that, hey, my contract with this company in AEW is going to be up real soon. We don't know when, but it sounds like it's going to be real soon, of the rushing into this match with her and Chris, at Full Gear, instead of waiting until World's End, the last pay-per-view of the year. But basically, depending on when it is, it could be real soon. In my opinion, this is a message. She's sending a message to them like, hey, you want me to come back? I want to come back, and I want to. It's like, her message to them is like, hey, you see what I'm doing? You want me to come back? Because, I want to come back, and I know you want me back. Guess what? What I'm doing outside of the company, that's what you do for me there. That's what you let me do there. And if that's the message, then why don't you just come out and say it? Come out and say it, on social media. Come out on AEW and make a story out of it, saying, hey, I'm only doing this so that my former employer, when they sign me back, will instantly put me in the main event and make me the face of the division. Why not just, come out and say that if that's the case? Because I feel like that's what it is. It's not just proving her worth, which is a good thing, but it's basically, I think, her sending a message to them like, hey, you want me back? You book me the way I'm supposed to be booked. you book me as a dominant champion. But that's just my opinion. But yeah, some people say it's laughable right now. I know Alex Hicks he's laughing about it. He makes parody remarks about it during his reviews, like he's going to probably do tonight, because his reviews going live right now as well. Just Alex, that is, formerly Deluxe Man. So he makes a parody remark about it. Try to be serious, but it's a parody. It's a satire, serious. Secure, whatever the name is, satire. Yeah, satire like satirical, whatever it's called. Basically, making a joke out of it, trying to make fun of it in his own way by trying to say, oh, give her all the belts, give her all the belts, But yeah, it's just getting to that point to where it's like, when is enough enough, you know? And if they want to make this program with Statlander going into next month's Full Gear pay-per-view interesting, then if I'm Statlander and they want to push her as being, maybe a badass, basically being maybe the legit, champion that the women's division needs, and the way they're positioning her right now, it feels like they're trying to make her into someone that will, tell it like it is. Like she'll take the gloves off and she'll just shoot with you. She'll shoot. She'll tell you the truth. She'll go unscripted, if you will. And to me, if they want to make this thing interesting between Monet and Statlander going into Full Gear, then you have Statlander come out and just call Mercedes out for what she's doing. Call her out for using her influence, behind the scenes, not just in AEW, but everywhere she's been. Using her creative control. Yeah, tear the curtain. Have Statlander do that. Have her tear the curtain back and say that. And say that, and say basically that that's the only reason you've been successful, because you're too afraid to face people one-on-one legitimately without, having some pull in your favor, without having your influence gain you what you want, because you're too scared to do it on your own. Have her do that, and maybe even have her drop the bomb of, hey, I believe the only reason you're doing this is because you're trying to get back into the good graces of your former employer by showing them what you can do outside of the company, and you're believing that if you go back there, they'll treat you the same way. They'll give you the same treatment you've gotten, outside of them, or got from being away from them and all that. Have her do that. Have her call her out. Have her do like a work shoot situation where she talks about the behind the scenes influence and creative stuff she has that's getting her all this gold and everything, because she's too afraid to do it legitimately on her own, without any help. And also have her acknowledge that maybe that Mercedes is doing this because she wants to get back in the good graces of her former employer. To me, if you have Statlander do that, to me that builds more interest, because at least there's a little bit of truth, a little bit of reality and truth being thrown into this, and it's gonna make it's gonna make people want to tune in, and make people want to tune in maybe, and and get invested in the match and see if maybe it'll pay off with Statlander finally going over Monet, or basically Monet will have that influence help her out, if you know what I mean. But we'll have to see. We'll have to see what they do and everything going forward. We really will. We'll have to wait and see what they do going forward with this. But right now, again, you can't blame anybody for feeling the way they are about the fact that, yeah, Mercedes pretty much is on the verge of becoming 12 belts Monet and dominating, overall that AEW and Ring of Honor women's division. You can't blame them for feeling that way. But let me know what your thoughts are, guys. Comment down below, like the video, ring the bell for notifications, subscribe to the channel, and until next time, I'm out.